G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy or AFL Fantasy podcast. Today we're reviewing round 23 and the big grand finale for the Content Creators Cup and getting ready for the last round of the year. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Hoisting the goal from inside the centre. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter or X at Ball Boys Fantasy. Joined as always by Luke Rogerson. Mate, we're nearly there. We've basically made it.
You see the finish line, yeah. I think I saw, it might have been Warney tweeted at some stage this weekend, like one week to go, and I think I echoing that sentiment.
You felt it.
Yeah, I think there was a point there when I got to the point where I realised I really wasn't going to climb much higher.
Yeah.
All the teams.
It's felt like that this season. I don't know if that's like typical.
Yeah, I guess to a point where all the teams are effectively the same. You're full of premium, so you kind of you've made as much pushing as you can, and it does get hard to get up. To get up.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
For sure.
1 week to go.
Well, yeah, first year for us with the podcast, and we know we've bar 1 week we've done every week where I've gone on holidays and you've taken the week off, kicked your feet up. But no, it's been good fun. It's been a good experience, and I've had a little bit of something to keep me going. And let's just start by a bit of this.
You're simply the best.
He's had it queued up, people.
Modesty in its finest form right now.
The Content Creators Champion. Congrats,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah, I'm sitting here being all selfish thinking, my season's done, I don't care. And you won the Content Creators Cup yesterday. Congrats,
so it's
mate.
look, it's been a hard fought season. I guess he's been, he's started his own comp and he's chosen an extremely good year to do it. So
Yeah, he played
he's been
bloody well.
it's been a good side all year. I hadn't beaten him this entire season. I think I lost to him in the last round. Lost to him in the first final. I think we might have had together, and then yeah,
And only
pipped him on this one.
just pipped him too. What,
Yeah,
14 points, something like that?
I think it changed to 12 points.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a late change, so 12 points in the end. So
It's that
very,
close.
very close. My boy, we'll talk about him later, but my boy Brayshaw
Yeah.
got me there over
Come
the line.
through in the
So-
clutch. But there's
so
still
yeah.
the overall
Still
rankings.
the overall, and I think I've got 37 points on him, so it's
Okay.
still tight.
Yeah,
it's
very
still
tight.
definitely go either way. So still all to play for in the final round. But shout out to Tim Guest and the AFL Fantasy Fanatics for organising the Content Creators Cup and donating to a very, very worthy cause and giving up a bunch of money for charity. So
Yeah.
very, very generous for those guys.
Yeah, really cool initiative for sure. For sure. Should we talk some bogs and flogs?
Let's do it.
And the winner of the Norm Smith Medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Yeah, lots of embarrassments this week. I think the man who talked about, or the quote came from, might come up later in the show. But Brisbane versus Collingwood, with Collingwood going down to the mighty Lions in Melbourne at
Yeah.
Marvel Stadium.
Not too much sort of fantasy relevant
Yeah.
boggery in this game. Pendle's wound back the clock with a 122, but I guess some people like Guesty may have been holding on to Darcy Cameron. He knocked out just a low ton, and that could have been.
His first half was definitely bog-worthy. I think
Yeah.
he slowed down incredibly a lot once
Which is
the
a
big
little
Cox came on.
a little bit painful for those that do own him, but I guess if you're looking for a bog from that game, he's the highest fantasy relevant scorer, so we'll run with that.
He had 20 points in the second half, had a 56-point second quarter, so started the game on fire. 86 points in the first half. You thought you were on a massive one, and then he just limped to the end.
Yeah, that's
so.
160, isn't it? He's double it.
You double it, right? Yeah.
That's he probably deserves the bog and the flog, doesn't he?
Yeah, a bit of both. I'm going to give the flog, though, to Devon Robinson. Have you seen
I
this
haven't.
guy's...
Is this the rig thing?
he's lost his shirt halfway through the game. And
But
you know how many followers he's on Instagram he's picked up?
No.
He's picked up 25,000 followers since that
No,
game.
he hasn't.
He has, yeah. He's
What?
gone up by 25,000 followers.
Everyone's
so the
expe-
flog is really the thirsty gangsters out there giving him a follow on Instagram.
I love how quick he was to just get rid of that shirt. Just press the eject button. It was just like, it's coming off, but boots.
Yep.
See you later.
BT with some good commentary there saying he is not in any rush out there. He was loving it, I reckon. He had a good time out there.
That's funny. Yeah, nice one. I like that.
Bit of floggish behaviour there. Richmond versus North Melbourne. Just a ripping game of footy here. Who's the best on ground?
Oh, this is a horrible game of footy, but I think the Shees deserves the best on ground. I think it was even his highest score for the year.
I want to say it was.
The toughest thing here about Sheasel is it got to a point for a lot of teams where you're looking at your team, you're thinking, okay, it's luxury season, who do I trade out? And there's kind of just that mental thing of like, oh, he's a rookie, you know, he had a poor score a few weeks ago. You think, okay, shift off him. And I think, you know, at that point when most people shifted off, he's now gone bang, bang. I think he went 110 last week and now he's gone 130 effectively this week, which is pretty painful. I think even mentioning that Content Creators Cup, I think Guesty moved him on this week, and that could have even been the difference. I don't know who he traded in, but
I think he went to Newman, so it was not the worst. I mean, I think he still lost maybe 4 points with that trade, but obviously if he traded someone else, it would have been much better.
For sure. But he's the bog for that one.
Yeah, so just outstanding first season. I'm going to give the flog to our guy here, and I feel bad for recommending him a couple of weeks ago because, look, he had 99 in the first game, which we thought was going to be that sugar hit, but this game, what do you have? 74.
Yeah, rubbish.
Jaden Short. Just rubbish, yeah. Like, you'd think, you know, North Melbourne, you know, it was not that hot of a contest. Like, balls were flying around. There was marks to be had. I just, would have thought that he would have done a little bit better. But no tackles on the 20 disposals. 18 of them were kicks. So had the great ratio there, but just didn't get his hands on enough of it. So, not good enough, Jaden.
I think this next bog and flog combo kind of epitomised.
This is your weekend.
Epitomises luxury season and just like the way it can go wrong. So my option, and maybe for other people out there, it was similar, but my option this week was who do I move? Like, who do I trade out? Is it Flanders or Anderson? The two Gold Coast boys. I'm thinking Carlton, hard matchup.
Because you could go both of them to a midfielder. We should specify this.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't trading Flanders out as a forward. They were both sort of sitting in my midfield. So, the choice was there, and I thought I'll sort of toss the coin. I'll go with the more established player, and I'll hold on to Anderson.
The guy's got getting more CBAs,
Yeah, and that's
made sense.
That sums up my weekend pretty much. So we traded out Flanders, and he went the 120. Anderson went like 80 or something. At least I traded in Laird, so at least I didn't trade in Clary.
Clayton Oliver, who was your other option, so that would have been an all-time low.
Flanders, Bog, Anderson.
Yeah, Anderson, flog. Yeah, just not good enough, mate. I was happy enough to see the back of him, but not so lucky for yourself. GWS versus Essendon. Mate, we nearly had a record in this game. Man. We were looking at this game 10 minutes to go, and I thought it was going to happen.
I didn't watch this game, but I don't think that I missed much. But this guy's not really super fantasy relevant, but
you got to give him a shout.
When you pump out a 188, Jesse Hogan,
imagine him sitting in your draft league and you're in a prelim final.
Did you see Moreira's Magic tweet today?
No.
So I think, then fact check me on this because I just really briefly kind of cruised over it. I think he got sent Hogan to the scrap heap, and his opponent this week picked Hogan up.
Oh no!
I think that's what I'll find it. But
that would sting.
That's killer,
just drop a 180 on your head from someone from the waiver wire.
Yeah,
190 basically. Oh, I thought he was going to get 200. That was what I was hoping for, but. Just couldn't quite get there in the end. The flog for this game, I'm going to give it to Essendon because let the man kick 10. Let the man kick 10. Stop defending. The game's well and truly over. Let him have his 10th one. Let him get his 200 points in fantasy. But, otherwise just a pretty poor effort from Essendon there.
Now, Saints and Cats,
that is rough.
That's bad, yeah.
It cost me 340 points. Ouch.
Now, very popular VC option this week was Rowan Marshall, and I'll say he didn't disappoint, but there were a few people that were getting out on Twitter in the first little bit saying, hang on a second, where's this massive score from you, Romar? And he kind of come good in the end.
Yeah, you get building. I think every quarter was sort of better than his last. So
due to my loop situation, I had to get ballsy and put the C straight on him. So I was very happy when he came good in the end. Yeah,
who did you VC?
Because remember I did my stupid trades, and so I didn't end up bringing in the rookie loop.
That's right. Okay.
I VC'd Merritt.
There you go. Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
do remember. Yeah, okay. Well, luckily you had
All's
a
well that
big
ends well.
140 and the big boys there to save you. All right, let's go on to flog in this game. I couldn't really think of anything. There was not anything really to be floggish about. Mitch Duncan for getting himself suspended for next week. Maybe that's where I'll go. But other than that, not too much going on here. Controversial game of the round, Adelaide versus Sydney.
Yeah.
Let's start with some positives first. Best on ground.
Well, Lairdy, I think, is the best on ground, and he's just been getting it done. There was a couple of weeks ago, people going, the Adelaide run, is it as good as some of the other people's runs? But if you traded in Lairdy a couple of weeks ago, you're pretty happy with it, I reckon. So he just keeps getting it done. Hopefully he does again this week.
We're going to talk learnings probably start of next season, but one of the learnings, just while it's fresh in my memory here, is just get the best players. I know we talk a lot about like run and fixtures and things like that, but me picking like Sarong last week over Rory Laird has cost me a fair amount of points. And I think that when you have those guys who are just that notch above the rest, you want to just tick all those boxes first before you start mucking around with things. And Laird to me falls into that bracket. Unless there's like a clear tag, like the McGuinness kind of thing that was there for Clary this week. But
it's interesting because there is evidence both ways, and that's the thing that throws you is like, is which way do you go? Because so this week you say, okay, Bont with a great matchup, and he goes 140, you know, and so you go, well, then, you know, the evidence is go with the matchup, but then you've also got, you know, things that go the other way. Like Sarong had the great matchup, he pops his lowest score of the season, so it's...
I thought the same thing. I was tossing up between a Tom Green and Treloar this weekend, and I was like, oh, Tom Green's probably the better player. The guy's done it for most of the season. I'll go with him. And felt like 118, I think he scored, or 120, and I was like happy with that. And then Treloar obviously goes 140 or whatever he did. So, yeah, like you said, evidence both ways, but...
Shows there's still a bit of luck involved in this game, I reckon.
Absolutely a bit of luck. Bulldogs versus Eagles.
What about your flog from the Adelaide-Sydney game?
Oh, shit, yeah, I'm glossing over. Flog for this game. Goal umpire.
Yeah, Bales would be filthy if you missed out on that one.
What are you doing? Just go to the review. Like,
It's
they
bad,
review every goal under the sun these days, and this one, they just went... Nah, let's back him in. Let's go. It was a point.
Maybe that umpire was just feeling the pressure from, you know, all those shit reviews, and he thought, "No, I've seen something."
He hasn't.
That was an almighty deflection.
Oh my gosh, that's filthy because obviously Adelaide are now mathematically eliminated from finals. Whereas they would have still had a chance. Look, it would have been a long shot potentially, but I mean maybe not. They had a good percentage, so
Bulldogs helped them out too.
Yeah, so that
is rough.
That is rough.
That is rough. Now, speaking of disappointments, the Doggies losing to the Eagles wasn't great, but from a fantasy perspective, we had 3 times 140 scorers. I wonder how many times that's happened.
That's from the same team. Can't be too many times, and in a loss, mind you, as well. So pretty wild.
So English, Bont, and Treloar, you guys can share the bog on that one.
Yeah, top 3 big boys. All 140 plus.
Yeah.
Although I think they're all very, very popular choices, pretty obvious ones. Flog, I'm going to give it to Bevo because, number 1, you lost to the West Coast Eagles. Number 2, you've potentially cost your club at a finals. And number 3, just continue to fuck us around here. Jack McRae.
Are there people that still own McRae? Surely
I
not.
hope not. Sure.
Oh,
I hope Holmesy doesn't still have it. But, like, what are you doing? Like the Eagles, like maybe they were holding on for this matchup, and he gets tactical sub, no Libba. McRae's just not doing anything. I think McRae can also share in this because he hasn't, I don't know what he's doing, but it's just not really what we want to see from our player. He playing defensive half, so not really playing forward. He was just not getting it done. So subbed. I wouldn't be surprised if Bevo is, feeling the heat on his seat there.
Yeah, for sure. Second last game of the round, Melbourne and the Hawks. I've got the bog here as the Finn.
Oh,
this is not...
You sicko.
Yeah, I'm a sicko. Only because I don't own Clary. If I owned Clary, it'd be a different story. But
this was just at least you didn't trade in.
At least I didn't trade him in. Some people might have got a little bit of a leg up. But did you see the interesting comments that came out of this game with Simon Goodwin?
Yeah, he hates getting the ball.
Throwing a little bit of shade. See, I didn't watch the game, so I don't know if there was, scragging going off and holding off the ball and stuff like that. But if you're playing within the rules of the game and your tactic is to nullify...
He's done his job, hasn't he?
That's what I mean. It's like if Sam Mitchell looks at it and goes, hey, we don't care if Finn McGuinness touches the ball as long as Clayton Oliver doesn't, and that puts us in the best position, then
Yeah, if Melbourne were doing that and their guy did as good of a job he wouldn't be saying anything bad about
I don't
him.
think so.
He'd be giving a pat on the back.
I
But
don't think
yeah,
so. But interesting.
He's a beast. Who obviously is probably the best tagger in the game right now.
I wonder if he used his new catchphrase this week.
I hope not. I hope
You've
not.
been fingered.
Jesus.
Clary.
I was hoping we would avoid that. Flog. I'm going to give it a Sicily. Sick dog. Mate, you made my weekend more stressful than it needed to be. After your teammate Will Day went down with the cramps after having a great 3 quarters, I was hoping you could step up and give me something about that last quarter. 10 points, man. Just not good enough.
Didn't happen.
And, made me sweat a little bit more for that matchup on the weekend. Lucky I got through, but yeah, I haven't got any of the bloody good Sicily scores this year. Just 2 sub-90 scores so far. So
Well, mate, he smashed in the last round last year, so perhaps he's do it again.
Redo.
And now segueing to a guy that did help you with your win, and Andy Brayshaw got it done for you in the end. He was the one that got you across the line.
Yeah,
he was the bog as well.
Probably been my favourite trade in the year. I think I traded him in for a 150. He's gone and won basically 120 here to seal the victory in the Content Creators Cup. So one of my favourite fantasy players. The Flog is his teammate who I traded in last week, and I've got basically his 2 lowest scores for the entire year.
Yeah.
Caleb Sarong.
Yeah,
both. I think he got 86 both weeks, or 84. He might have been changed too. But yeah, just. Mate, come on.
And he's the example of the opposite of what we were just talking about. You trade him in for a West Coast matchup. You think, okay, this is what we do at this. This is what all the podcasts are giving the advice on, and he gives you 2 stinkers.
Yeah,
but
can't be
what can you
sometimes.
do?
But yes, he is the Flog for this one.
Beautiful.
All right, let's move on to the next segment here. Okay, one of the players we were nervous about going into the round, and someone who I was actually trading until LDU was a late out, was Sam Doherty. He did make it through the entire game there. Didn't score all that well.
Do we think that the Doctor plays this
little
week?
bit. Sorry. What did you say? Sorry?
I was just going to say, do we think he plays this week now that Carlton have cemented a spot?
They've got a spot. Do they have anything else to play for? No, not really. They don't have a chance of getting in the top 4. So, yeah, it could potentially be someone that they look to rest if he is still carrying a bit of an injury. And the shitty thing is they play the last game of the round at 6:10 on a Sunday. So we're not going to have concrete information. Are they travelling? No, they're at Sydney as well. They're at Melbourne as well. So it could be one that we don't find out till a little while. Hopefully it's named up if he is out. To me, it looked like he was getting around okay. Like it wasn't really lingering him. So fingers crossed that he's all good.
You're not going to hold...
Because he's not really in my trade plans at the moment.
And I don't think you're going to hold a trade to that last game of the weekend.
I think so.
Like if he were to be a late out, you hope that's not the case, but... And there'd be really no one to go to because I think they're playing GWS.
Yeah, they're playing the last game. So, I mean, you go to what?
Well, Newman if you didn't have him. But
Newman would be, that would probably be the prime target, obviously.
But I guess that's, a lot of people have him now.
If you've got both. Yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. Like you said, they're kind of locked into the spot there. They've kind of got 5th at worst, 6th. Yeah. So it's not really like a huge make or break. Yeah. They've got home field for that first game. They're not making the top 4. So if he is just a bit sore, it might make sense to rest him. So
we'll wait and see on that
Something to keep an eye on. Like we said before, Jack McRae, tactical sub. What do we do with this information when it comes to next year and how McRae has done this season? Because, how do we view this second half of the year for him in terms of,
where does that leave him for
next year? Is
next
he cooked? Is it just the fact that he's playing this shit role? If we see a change in coach, if Bevo's gone at the end of the year, are our hopes reinvigorated?
I think there has to be, if Bevo is gone, I think there has to be some reconsideration for all of those Bulldogs midfielders and their roles. But the fact, it's hard to point to the shit role when you get tactically subbed. The coach is not subbing somebody that they think can impact the game in some way. That, for me, says you're very much on the outer of the game plan. Do you know what I mean? How can that fill you with any confidence, even going into next year?
It's a tough one. It's a definitely tough one. Obviously, we'll cover it plenty in the preseason next year, but just sort of, while we're fresh into it, it is kind of like how can you have much confidence on this kind of a player?
Yeah.
Next guy, another defender, maybe having a bit of a question mark over his head going into the weekend, Will Day. The quote was that he was carrying some injuries and cramped up. So they chose to rest him with the game seemingly out of reach. I saw they said that he was rested for the final 8 minutes. I would have thought it was longer than that. Didn't do anything in the last quarter. Basically didn't get on the field. So, So if he's just cramping up, like that's not something you'd hang him out for. But again,
I'm
they
nervous
don't
about
have
some of these defenders.
too much to play for, really. But we'll see.
Yeah.
The good news is he plays the first game on the Saturday. So
we'll get some news.
And there's not really much happening on a Friday night, so you should kind of know before you make your trades.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I'm very worried about some of those defenders after making the
Zeeble move.
aggressive Zeeble move for no benefit. That was horrible.
For sure. Same team, Finn McGuinness. He's still clamping, guys. Now, I want to get your opinion.
Yep.
They've got Freo next week to finish it out.
Yep.
Who does Finn go to in that matchup? Because I've got a few Freo players in my team, and
you're looking to trade one of them out.
Maybe both.
Well, okay, maybe. Well, that's where I was going to go. I was going to say, it's roulette if you choose which one to trade out, because he could always go to the other one. He's shown in the last few weeks, he's shown that he'll go to an outside player, he'll go to an inside player. So Brayshaw, obviously Sarong.
If you can clamp Oliver to a sub-70 score or a Josh Kelly to a 30, like
he's a real
danger
deal.
territory right there.
He's the real deal. I mean, if you have the ability to trade out both, who would you go to? You go to Clary and someone else.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure at this stage, but I don't know how much money I would have to sort of play around with a couple of sideways moves. But I think that if I had to guess on a Monday evening, I reckon he goes to Sarong.
Okay.
I feel like he's been the better player for Freo for most of the season. He's probably more impactful in terms of, his possessions probably do a bit more damage. But that's a total guess, really.
Yeah, I guess with that one, so you go a few different avenues, like you mentioned, potentially moving on both of them. Otherwise, watching really closely during the week to see if there's any hints in press conferences or anything like that.
I never trust coaches when they speak as well,
we've seen that too. Yeah. So I feel like it would be awful in that situation to move on one of them and pick incorrectly.
The wrong one, yeah.
So I don't know where that leaves you.
Could he go to Hayden Young?
Isn't Hayden Young going to someone else? Isn't Hayden Young?
He hasn't been tagged in the last couple of weeks. He's probably got the best kick out of those guys.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to Hayden Young.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought. But
I think it'd be Brayshaw or Sarong.
That's maybe optimistic. But yeah, I think there is definitely a play to trade out both those guys if you have both. But it'll be something that we'll monitor throughout the week.
Yep.
One little, last thing on that game, Sicily spent a bit of time in the midfield in that third quarter, which I thought was interesting.
That's not what owners want to see.
He scored pretty well doing it, so I think he had his best quarter in that third, and then he went back into the defence after Will Day sort of got his cramps. So I think, just something to monitor. I believe they had a laid out with one of their mids in that game as well.
Yeah,
so
Newcombe was out.
Yeah, so I think if that changes, I'd expect him to go back to defence. He did us a little bit at the end of last year when they were experimenting, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And you popped a note in here about teams out of finals contention. Does anyone get rested? Who are you looking at for this one?
I just sort of thought, there's a few more teams this week that are now statistically, incapable of making finals. And does that mean that anyone sort of gets parked up early? So
Geelong,
obviously, Geelong. I don't know whether does they just say park up Tommy Stewart or.
You'd be the only one we're really worried about.
Yeah, even I guess a team like Essendon and you said the Western Bulldogs as well. Yeah, there's still statistically a chance, but
I mean, I think don't correct me if I'm wrong. Hold on, who's in eighth right now?
GWS. So GWS take on Carlton in the last game of the round. So if Carlton beats them, then the Western Bulldogs and Essendon could still have a tilt. So Essendon take on Collingwood and
so Essendon played first.
Take on the Cats. So they've got a bit more to play for. And then
so you think Essendon would still come out firing? The Bulldogs will still come out firing?
Oh, Essendon would have to win by an exorbitant amount of points to leapfrog GWS. So it's probably only the Western Bulldogs that you're looking at there.
Geelong, Richmond, Adelaide.
Yeah,
they're the kind of teams that have been eliminated now from contention.
Are they potentially? Is there potential for?
Well, I reckon maybe someone like a Matt Crouch might be even a potential because he's kind of only come in through like necessity. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe they use some. They've been trying to get some of those kids running through there in the midfield. Maybe you see less of a Matt Crouch.
Yep.
Or I'm pretty sure Sloan had a bit of an injury in the game as well. I don't think you'd see him come back. Richmond, obviously, you're not seeing Jack and Koch there.
Yeah.
Are they pulling Dusty? Are they pulling Taranto or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that it's more just sort of like a general flag to say that the
There could be some carnage.
Yeah, and I just think it's like one of those ones where if Dustin Martin just pulls up a little bit tight on the track, what do you stand to gain? So it's not one of those, it's not maybe that they're specifically injured, but if Dusty says, or, I'm just using him as an example, hey, look, a little bit tight, all good, park up, you know what I mean? So
Dusty's gone to the Gold Coast now as well.
On the GC, see him down at Showgirls.
Yeah, look out.
Yeah, I don't know, just a little flag there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on, but obviously we'll find out a bit more when it comes to Thursday night teams and the Friday night extended squads.
We will.
All right, let's go into a bit of this. The last chop of the season. Let's go. It's the final chop. So obviously, first name on the chopping block is Jack Siebel, who...
Why did I trade him in?
You traded in just this last week. I was nervous going into my matchup with Timmy that Zeeble was going to go monster.
I got to the point where, I didn't stand to lose anything. I didn't really stand to gain anything. Yeah. So I was like,
have a crack. Yeah, a bit of fun.
But yeah, it's probably come back to bite me this week.
So he's got to go. He's obviously not playing this weekend that we knew last week. Jack McRae, I think, is definitely someone, if you don't have him, if you have him still, he can go. But another defender, Jaden Short and Will Day, where do you think those boys stand? Like, how urgent do you think those guys are getting out? Say Will Day is named and he's there on Saturday.
If Will Day's named, then I think you hold him over Jaden Short.
I'd agree.
It looked as though he still has the scoring potential. Shorty hasn't been inspiring in the last couple, but you might find yourself in a position where you have to hold him. But if you're looking at Short and you're looking at the rest of the team and thinking, rest of the team's pretty solid, then I'd be happy to move on Short, especially if you can move him up to like someone like a Newman or, one of those big dogs that you don't have.
I think Short's definitely a pretty easy guy to get out of your squad at this stage. Will Day, he's in my team. He's, maybe on the chopping block for me, depending on if I want to get rid of both those Freo guys. Brad Crouch, is he someone that we can get rid of? I think he just got to his ton, but he's kind of been doing okay. He's tonned up 3 of the last 4, but he did have that 68 in the in between those ones there. So do we feel like he's back to scoring? He just took a couple of quarters off and didn't try in those last quarter of that final game and the first quarter of the next one?
Yeah, potentially to take on the Lions at the Gabba on Saturday.
They got something to play for, don't they?
Saturday afternoon. So I think I would be moving him on, but there's a few guys I'd move on before. So if you're holding on to like a Noah Anderson, ditch Noah Anderson first. Obviously, Jaden Short, be moving on Shorty. I think I'd even move on Will Day before I'd move on Crouch, to be
probably
honest.
Would too, yeah.
I think Crouch has the potential to get it done a little bit more. So there's, if your team's looking really good, then maybe Crouchy goes, but a lot of guys before that.
Let's talk about Andrew Brayshaw and Caleb Strong. If you could only trade one, say you've got both those guys and a Zeeble, let's say, who are you trading? Is it Strong just because he's not getting it done? Is it Brayshaw?
Perhaps. The McGuinness tag comes into it as well. Look, at this time in the season, I think I'd trade Sarong beforehand because he's not getting it done. But I think that McGuinness is more likely to go to Brayshaw than to Sarong. But this is
more that outside player.
This is I think so, and it can be more damaging if he's out there getting +6s streaming through. But this is something that I want to talk about as well is. Just because we decide to sit in front of a camera and put headsets on,
we got no idea.
We don't fucking know. So, and hopefully people who enjoy listening to us realize, we know all the same shit as you guys. We just, decided to talk about it in front of a camera.
Try to have our reasoning out there and explain,
please,
our thought process.
We're just sort of think of what we're kind of doing is just like a sounding board discussion because, don't think that
if anyone does have some insights, like some Freo fans, drop it down in the YouTube comments and
let us know.
Because we would all very much, we all ears.
Yeah, we certainly don't profess to know, a heap more than anyone else. When people hit us up on Twitter like, oh, what do you think of this? I always feel a little bit bad because I'm like, oh, this is what I think, but trust me, it doesn't come from a better position than what you might think either. So.
Yeah, just sounding boards and, and people, I've done this before, like you ask for someone's opinion, doesn't mean that you're going to go ahead and do that. You just want to hear what people have to say. So
I don't want to feel responsible for people making a trade that goes poorly.
That's right. People pull the trigger, they press the button and, just that little disclaimer out there first of all. Yeah. But look, I think I'd go Sarong out too. I don't know though. I think flip a coin really on this one. So I would love to hear if anyone has some inside word. A couple of forwards that you could be on the chopping block here. Stephen Cornelio. I think they're coming up against Carlton, who have been restrictive. And Cogs has been, he was decent on the weekend, but he's been pretty subpar the last 3 to 5 weeks. He's had that 129, but a couple of 90s, that 63 in there against Port and Carlton, a tough matchup. This week, I think that if you wanted to make a funny play and get someone like a Tex Walker or Walker, he might be one of the guys that I would be happy to trade out.
Yep.
But what are your thoughts on trading out a Tim Taranto instead? Because he has also been a very underwhelming player this second half of the season.
I think, and to be fair, just looking now, his last month has been equally as subpar.
He's got Port as well,
if not worse. So, and my initial thoughts were I'd trade Cornelio before I'd trade Taranto, but I don't know if my thoughts are jaded by what he did previously in the season. I'll throw something at you. Is Tim Taranto a potentially underpriced option next year? Which sounds ridiculous to say.
He'll be priced at like 114. I actually think it's more the opposite. I actually think he kind of overachieved during that time.
So his price
because when I thought of Tim Taranto, my head was always like 108 to 110, 111.
Yeah, you never thought like 150.
I never thought 120.
So just to clarify, the way the pricing works, he won't be priced at whatever he finishes this season on. It will then go back.
No, so because he's played more than 10 games, he's whatever he averages, that'll be his price. He'll be priced at basically 114, which is what he's averaged so far.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's probably a bit overs.
Okay.
Or maybe roughly about. It's fair value, I'd say. Yeah. He'll also only be a midfielder, so he won't be a forward as well. So
benefit.
I just think you're probably looking for more value than him at this stage. But potentially, he obviously did it for a fair stretch there, but I always felt like that was a little bit overs. I was never expecting that, personally. All right. Should we talk about some trade targets? Who are we getting in at this time?
Trade targets.
Trade targets. All right. So talking defenders, I think Nick Newman has just gone absolutely crazy these last sort of 5 to 6 rounds.
Yep.
And I think he's definitely a clear guy that if you don't have him, he is... You can't deny the form. Had that 50-point last quarter, 125. He's gone over 120 in his last 4 games, which is just absolutely bananas. So he's definitely someone that if we're talking about next year, we should definitely put in a little black book there because he's going to be priced around that 100 mark. But based on what he's been doing, he could easily be someone that goes 105 to 110 for a season.
We were too stubborn on him, hey?
Yeah, I didn't see this coming, to be honest. I didn't quite see the subtleness in terms of his role change since, around 17, 18. I guess with Doherty going more into the midfield, he's taken more of that general in the back there and distributing the ball a little bit more. So, yeah, definitely a subtle role change that's paid dividends in terms of his scoring.
For sure. So, he's probably got to be the number one target if you don't have him, I would have thought, based on his scoring.
I definitely would agree. Talk to me about these two guys and give me your opinion on splitting them. Luke Ryan versus Harry Sheasel. Both of them with decent ceilings. I guess somewhat unique. Sheasel's probably a bit more highly owned. Luke Ryan has the Hawthorn matchup.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have thought that he cops a McGuinness tag or anything like that, right?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, we've talked about this before, but I don't feel like Luke Ryan's the most damaging bloke, despite the fact that he always wants the pill in his hands.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think Luke Ryan has maybe the slightly higher ceiling. Like I can see him giving you a 150 on his week, but I don't know whether Sheasel does.
Well, Sheasel's now got no Zeeble. Playing Gold Coast, who are actually a decent matchup for
he does, but he's had no
defenders.
Zeeble a couple of times during the year, and he still hasn't shown us that kind of like 150 massive
No,
ceiling.
no.
But I
But
think
you may be more confident that he gives you at least 100.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, Luke Ryan might drop below the 100 a little bit more frequently. So I guess that probably comes down to what you're hoping for. If you're happy to cop an 80 and you just want to swing for the fence, maybe a Luke Ryan's the go. But if you feel a little bit more confident that you want that like 110, then maybe Sheasel against the Suns is the play.
Luke Ryan strikes me as a player that in a game where they're not really playing for all that much, that he'll just pad his stats a little bit just to finish out the season. Yeah, I reckon.
He does strike. He's that kind of guy, doesn't he?
He does have the thirst about him, that's for sure. So let's move on into the midfielders. Rank these guys here for me. Rory Laird, Clayton Oliver, and Tom Green. How would you go about ranking those guys?
I reckon I'm actually putting Clayton Oliver at the top of the list just because I don't think that he's going to finish the regular season
like that
on 2 shit games. I think that would have really irked him.
Yeah.
A little bit. And the fact that the coach has publicly come out and talked about that whole McGuinness tag, I think that he's going to be out for blood.
Yeah. I tend to agree. And I think I've heard the great man Selby talk before about like the week after a great player gets tagged. Yeah. You get that freedom when you come into a matchup without a tag. I believe they've got Sydney, I want to say.
They have Sydney.
So not the easiest of matchups, and they will still have a fair bit to play for. So that's like my only hesitation. Rory Laird does have West Coast.
He and Matt Crouch, who you've got on this list, do have West Coast. And I think that there could potentially be a little bit of a chip on the shoulder for the Crows this week. Even though they're now statistically not a chance to make the finals, I reckon they would just be absolutely fucking filthy this week, and maybe even just coming out and we are going to annihilate West Coast this week. You know what I mean? We're just going to
absolutely point to prove.
We're pissed off.
Fuck you, AFL. Like we could have been in the finals.
I think there could be a little bit of that. I mean, that's how you'd feel if you were playing.
I would. I would be slighted for sure. Yeah. So and for that reason, I've listed them in this order because I still think if I don't have any of those three, I'd still be going Laird first because of the matchup.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Laird and Oliver both have a reason to feel PO, don't they?
Yeah, they could both be big. Tough one to split, I reckon. And then Tom Green, he's got a tougher matchup this week against Carlton, but he just seems to get it done. Like he went 118 against Port the week before, so he's playing high time on ground, high CBAs. Exactly what you want. They've got a lot to play for, obviously, in that game.
Yep.
Well, we think, unless both the other teams sort of fall over.
Well, I mean, they could be playing to make the 8 in that game because is it Essendon?
Essendon and Bulldogs, both
so
of them.
If Essendon get up.
The Bulldogs more so with the percentage.
Sorry, Doggies, yeah. So if the Doggies get up on Saturday night against Geelong, then
they'll have a lot to play for.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think if that is the case, he'll be one of the main guys, just getting in there and getting tackles and going hard at it. So I think all three of those guys are sort of your top 3 options in the midfield. Maybe some other options. We touched a little bit on Matt Crouch, but he's been good recently. And of course, we've got the West Coast matchup. My only hesitation is that, like, he's probably not their future. And when they are mathematically eliminated from the finals, like, is he going to be someone that makes way, maybe even as a part of, like, the role for some of those younger guys to go into the midfield a little bit more in their final game?
I found it interesting, the whole move with him this year, because I don't know whether his move back into the team coincided with them thinking, hey, we might make finals, so we're going to, like, shore things up with some older heads, some strong bodies, or whether they made a flip and decided that Crouch is the future, which, doesn't, to me, make a whole deal of sense. So the interesting thing with him is, despite his decent scoring, he is playing pretty low time on ground. So on the weekend, he played 65%, and then in the previous 2 weeks, just over 70%. Yep. So you kind of have that there as there's always a chance with those low time on ground guys that if they just have a little patch where they go missing, you might end up with a 60 or 70 and just not that opportunity to, like, flesh out the score a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'd be looking at your Laird, your Green, and your Clayton Oliver before I was looking at Crouch.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'll throw some other sort of names that are a bit more out there. Could you go Aliba straight away back off his concussion for a 1 game do or die for the Bulldogs versus Geelong?
I guess it is do or die. So, there's a potential he could come out and go massive. I'm still going the other three before that.
Yeah.
So I'm still going Laird.
Treloar?
Not going to be as good this week, I don't think, against Geelong as he was against West Coast. I don't think you're getting another 140. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's definitely a very match-up dependent kind of play in that one there. Those were kind of the main guys I wanted to just have a look at. I think
I feel like Liberal will outscore Treloar.
You could go back to like Tuke Miller or someone like that versus North Melbourne. He had 118 last game. He just seems to be a bit more all over the place with his role.
I think the way
but North Melbourne's a good matchup.
It is. The way the season's panned out, I don't think there'd be a heap of teams that have Green, Laird, and Clary Oliver. Just the way those guys have come back from.
So your answer's going to go to one of those.
That's kind of where I think the default is. It's like, if there's a team that has all three of those, then you're in a pretty unique situation, aren't you? Because, everyone's had to shift off those three guys at some point this year.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of defaulting to those guys.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's move on to the forwards there to finish off, and let's talk about this guy here first, because this is the question that I think a lot of people have been eyeing off for a little while. I think we talked about it a fair while ago when he did kick his. Did he kick 10?
Yeah.
But Tex Walker, how much of a play is he actually? And is in what situation are you doing this play? And what is your realistic expectations for Tex in this last game?
It's like all or bust, isn't it? And I think anyone going into this move knows that that's the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you may get like a half decent score out of him, but if you get a half decent score, you're not happy. You want you're happy with
big,
the 150.
Big score, yeah.
That's what you want. So
when do they play? They play the 8-10 game on the Saturday. I'm just pulling up the Coleman medal tally at the moment. So he's on 67. Charlie Curnow is on 75. And so they obviously play the last game on the Sunday. So he's going to have to get the Coleman medal, he's going to have to at least kick 8 to tie, 9 to be ahead.
And have Curnow not kick any.
And Curnow not kick any. So it's not all that realistic.
Yeah, it's a little bit outside the realms, but, why not go for it? There's a couple of things that I kind of am umming and ahhing about a little bit. Is like, firstly, West Coast won last week.
True.
So are we talking about, absolute shit kickers that everyone's been talking about, or are we talking about a team that, had a crack?
It's at Optus as well. Just by the way. It's
and the other thing...
on the away deck.
The other thing, too, that I was thinking is in their favour, maybe Adelaide do come out with a point to prove and just absolutely go to town. But I think it would be more likely for him to have a huge bag at Adelaide Oval than it would be at Optus.
I still shy away from this kind of a player because
it's situational, isn't it?
I think it is situational. I think it gets kind of romanticized a little bit because it worked those few years ago. Do you like my word of the use? Romanticize? You were just smiling there. Anyway, but I feel like the year that I think it was Jeremy Cameron did it, and he scored that 150. The guy was in second, captained him, won himself a car. It's a fucking great story.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of cling to that, and that sticks in our memories a little while ago. But I don't know if those things. How often does that happen? Can lightning strike twice? It could, but I think the statistics or the odds would still say you're probably better off going for those midfielders with good matchups.
Well, let's just yes or no. If you were in second and you were 80 points behind first,
I think that the situation is right now that the second is like 50 points behind.
So 50 points is, you could make that up with a decent captain choice and the other person getting a bit of a stinker.
Yeah.
Or what would you do? Yes or no? Would you go for it? Would you go the Hail Mary?
If I had someone bad to trade out, then yeah. But if I was happy with my forward line, like if I had like kind of the big forwards and there was no one really that I wanted to trade out, like if you had Goulden, Rosie, Dunkley, Butters, Flanders, Taranto, like I'm pretty happy with that. Like there's no one maybe you could trade out a Tim Taranto versus Port Adelaide. It's a ballsy move, and it's definitely something that could pay off for you because Taranto's been subpar.
For some of those better teams, it's not outside of the realms of possibility to trade in Walker as a 23rd player, is it? I just don't know.
Yeah, actually, how much is he? That's a good point.
700.
700,000. So yeah, if you did have a 23rd premium,
Could you loop him?
that would 100% be a good play.
Could loop him if you had Vicentini. He plays on Sunday.
Vicentini plays the Sunday. Some of those Swans guys play if you've still got a Matt Roberts and he's not there. If you're like me and you're still rolling with the Jackson Binns on the Carlton team, you could do that. So yeah, the loop would be a great play actually. If you can make that work, I think that would be my preference in terms of the way to go. Because we've seen people like yourself, follow themselves trying to get that high upside play in a Zeeble and it didn't work out. But if you had the loop, you got the double shot kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you're doing it for the reason of the Hail Mary, like you're second and you're behind by 50 points, or you're in 110th position and you think that you might be able to get a hat, or you know what I mean? Like otherwise, I don't know.
I'd still rather try and get like a Clayton Oliver or a Tom Green,
because they could easily go massive too.
Those guys, and they're not. It's not like they're hugely popular either. Like a few of them are quite unique as well. So that's still my preference at this stage, but it could definitely be a play.
It's interesting and it's fun for everyone to talk about. So.
Would you go Tex Walker over Sam Flanders, who plays Gold Coast? Sorry, not Gold Coast. He plays for Gold Coast.
He'd be doing well to play Gold Coast.
But he plays North Melbourne. I actually think I'd rather go for Flanders.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, not because we think Flanders is going to kick 10 or anything like that, but
he's just racking it up at the moment.
No, he's doing well. Thanks for reminding me, by the way.
Trade him back in.
Yeah.
I mean, new coach to impress.
New coach to impress. Yeah.
Last game to make all that cash that he's going to sign on the off season.
Pick me next year.
Yeah. So personally, I think I'd go that way, but. Let us know down in the comments if you're doing the Tex Walker play. I think it would be, if nothing else, it'd be a fun game to watch and cheer him on.
That's true.
All right, well, that will do it for our trade targets. Now, I've snuck this extra little segment here just because, there's a few people chasing cars and hats and things like that, but there's a few people, maybe like yourself, who are having a bit of an eye on 2024. We won't go into too much detail, I don't think, with these guys, but maybe just a bit of a list of some players that we're keeping an eye on for next year. And while it's fresh in our minds how they've kind of finished this year, what are our expectations for them moving into next year? A lot can change. So it's kind of a fun exercise here.
I can't believe the name that you've got at the top of the list.
Number one, talking about defenders. Early picks, watch list for next year. Hayden Young. Hayden Young.
We've come full circle.
Is this 2023? But midfielder. And he looks good.
I hate to say it, but if he sticks in that role, what's he going to be priced at likely next year?
He'll be priced at basically the same, 89, I think he's averaged this season. So that'll be, again, he's played, I think, the full allotment of games. So that'll be his, a price stat figure next year, 89.
And I actually think if he's priced at 89 and he's in that role, I think he can average high 90s in that role.
So
what is that enough value to pick?
I think he started going to the midfield in round 20 from memory. So he's got 83, 119, 102, and 91. That's at least a mid-90s player, right?
Yeah, is that enough? If he's priced at 89, do you take 5?
We're going to lose a few defenders as well.
We are, true.
We're not going to have Doherty. We're not going to have Dacos. We're not going to have Dawson.
Yeah. If I'm Freo and I've seen what I've seen in the last 4 weeks, I'm playing him in the midfield next year. Yeah. You've got the option to use him as a tagger, maybe.
The thing that's impressed me the most is the tackling.
Yeah.
Because that's what I didn't think he had.
No, I thought he hated physical contact and hated the ball, to be honest. But.
No, it turns out he just hates Luke Ryan, I reckon. Just get him away from that fella.
And Luke Ryan wasn't giving up his post back there, was he?
No, not at all. So I think he's an interesting name to keep an eye on.
Yep.
What about our boy Jaden Short? We just told everyone to trade him out. But
man, Jaden Short is going to be priced juicily, and I think that Richmond's going to have a new coach. I don't feel like it'll be Minnie McWalter.
I don't think so either.
And I'm really excited to see where they play Jaden Short in the preseason.
So he's averaged 92 points for the season, which is a bit more than you thought. Yeah, and he's had an injured game of 25 in there as well.
But he's a guy that at different stages we've talked about as being a top 6, potentially having that ability.
He still had this season runs 117, 123, 102, 113, 99, 102, 85, 103. Like there's a middle patch there from round 6 to round 14 where he's averaged 105 points there. So I still think that he's definitely someone that could be as good as sort of D1 or D2 on his day.
Yeah.
So at 92,
92 is a bit to pay based on what we saw this year.
probably be a D1.
Yeah, I think so. New coach factor and a close watch in the preseason is what I'll be sort of looking for. But
I would agree.
Who else you want to talk about, Mitch? We're getting in real early.
We're getting in early, slipping in early.
The iceberg.
Himmelberg. Where's he going to play? That's the question, because he hasn't signed his contract. I think is
so
the
you meant
big
where's
thing.
he going to play in terms of like what football club?
Which football club, and also which position, because
I hope he plays at a football club where he can just wax across the half-back line.
Yeah. Well, look, even if he is playing just the role he has been playing, he's averaged 72 over the course of the season, and he's at least doing more than that. He's probably at least doing 85.
Yeah.
Even if he's just doing what he's done. But the X factor here is that I think he's out of contract and he could potentially move clubs.
My gut feel is that he stays with GWS, and I think it has.
Especially if they make finals, I think that'll be a good.
Yeah, has there been any news? I feel like
I might have missed it, to be honest, but I don't think so.
Well, hit us up if there is news. But for some reason I just had him penciled in at GWS, so I don't know if I've seen something. But
I knew the reason he was playing more defence is because they were trying to give him the position that he wanted to play, so he would re-sign with them.
Well, him playing back there has coincided with the Giants playing really good footy at the back half of this year. So I think priced at 70, he's a guy that you have to look at next year, don't you?
I would definitely
I'm already
agree.
getting a little bit more excited talking about next year.
He's up and about
Fuck this year, 2024, let's go. I'm perked up now.
Let's talk about some mids. I'm going to rattle off some names a bit here, and you tell me the ones that interest you the most.
Yep.
Jack Steele, Tuke Miller, Sam Walsh, Callum Mills, Jai Simpkin. Those are the names I've got here. Obviously, there's a few different price points at this end, but maybe we start with these first three because they're probably more in a similar price bracket. Jack Steele, Tuke Miller, and Sam Walsh should all be priced in the 90s.
They'll all be heavily considered. Tuke Miller, new coach, but then I'm also like
Dimmer.
Yeah, I'm like, what midfielder has averaged a decent score under Dimmer, which makes me a little nervous.
Although Taranto did pretty good under Dimmer this year. Let's not forget that.
That is true. That is true. Of those, the one I think I'm going to be looking most closely at is Sam Walsh, because if he can get an uninterrupted stretch where
he's actually the name that jumps out at me too.
He's had an interesting old year because he had a patch there where he absolutely killed it, and I think he was on that ton run once he came back from injury, and then inexplicably was just dog shit.
He's had an interesting career so far.
And because
he the year before had a similar kind of thing. I think he had syndesmosis.
Yeah.
Going to the start of the first round last year. So he's had multiple years where he's had, interrupted pre-seasons and not been healthy and hasn't been, I don't think he's been there round one the last couple of years. So he is, and he's the guy he's coming up. He's 23 years old. He's on the rise, where these other two are kind of plateauing, maybe potentially starting to come down. There's a few other names at the club, like Tuke. You've got, like, is Flanders going to be there? Noah Anderson, all these other guys around in that midfield that potentially take a bit of points off him.
Wait, who are we talking about?
I was comparing Sam Walsh and Tuke Miller.
Versus Tuke.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think? So, how do you think the back half of this year for Carlton has just been unbelievable and in a good way?
Yes.
Walsh hasn't been there.
Yeah, good flag. Yeah, good flag, because obviously it's not been the kind of footy that's like, let's get everyone 30 touches.
Yeah.
It's been a bit more direct. And that's when his scoring has been poorer.
So that, to me, is just a little bit of like a keep in mind. And also he's going to be priced at 95, is that right? Or, there or thereabouts?
About 95.
So what do you expect him? You'd be wanting 110 out of him at that.
I think he'd be at least 105.
Yeah.
So he's probably got at least 10 points.
Yeah.
Because he's got, an injured game in there as well.
I'd be nervous about that game plan a little bit, because if Carlton play great footy to finish the year, they're not going to be changing much next year in terms of...
That's a very good point. Very good point. Callum Mills and Jai Simpkin, a little bit more on the cheaper side. Are we too scarred to go there? Because
Callum Mills, holy shit.
Mills, he hasn't really inspired. If you just look at his score, 51, 69, 117, 58, 98, 71.
Based on his scores, priced at 80 is overs.
Yeah,
based on his year.
Yeah, you look at that first half and you're like, mate, take us back to then. And even then we were saying, what's going on with Callum Mills?
Yeah.
He's got a 3 in his average as well. So he's got some more natural inbuilt scoring. To me, I actually just think this is a lock. I'm going to go ahead and say
You're just locking it in.
I'm just locking this in because, look, he's 26 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He plays as a defender, and he's healthy, and he's got a full preseason. He smashes this, in my opinion. Absolutely smashes this. I know it's scarring. I know it's like right here, right now. He just scored a 51, but I think he's still going to be good.
Yeah, there's every chance I'll go there, but right at this point, it feels and looks stinky as.
Yeah. What about Jai Simpkin? He's a little bit of a tougher read for me because he's someone that we've kind of like pegged for breakout or like an improvement. I think he went back-to-back years averaging 91 or something like that in consecutive seasons. And then this year he's gone and he's averaged 73. So he's going to be a genuine mid-pricer in our midfield. He's a guy that's more than likely to get higher CBAs, although number one picks, priority picks, all these sort of things.
Where does that leave him?
You know, is he maybe someone, you know, Roy gave us the scoop at the start of the season. He was going to get less CBAs. He's still got a decent amount, but he's probably definitely behind like LDU, for example, in that midfield. Does Sheasel get more mid-time? Like,
I don't think I'd be going there.
He's definitely someone that you're going to have to see something. You couldn't just, look at the price and lock him in.
Yeah, and even then, I still think I'd be a little bit. I think there'll be hopefully mid prices are available that have more guaranteed, cash generation upside than he does.
Yeah, not someone I'm locking in by any stage, but I still think a name to flag. And remember, let's talk about rucks. Set and forget, right? Back's gone Brody Grundy.
Yeah. That's going to be such an interesting debate, isn't it? Because if Grundy's playing at a different club, he's guaranteed the number one.
he has to be playing at a different club.
Right? I think so. Yeah. That's my opinion on it. If they're both number one rucks, you've got to pick them. But then, are you not picking English and Marshall?
I mean, they'd be expensive.
They will be.
They'd be very expensive. English is nearly, 120, right?
That's true. I guess So that's interesting because you can get a set and forget combo that could give you what English and Marshall have given you this year, but for just such a heavy discount. So I think you have.
Yeah, I don't expect Grundy to bounce back and be a
be what he was.
10, 115 guy. I think he's probably more closely, like that 100 kind of a guy. Almost best case scenario, but his price is 75.
It's pretty cheap.
75.
I already told you, but next year I'm going to go super vanilla. I'll wait to see what everyone else tells me to do, and then I'll just do that.
Copy paste. But I think that's the early favourite for me in terms of like the most popular ruck combo is that Grundy combo. We're going back to Gaundy, but maybe do pat for one of those other rucks in there. And the forwards, few names again. Our boy Flanders.
What's he going to be?
Or my boy Flanders.
Yeah, correct.
We said before, talking about Jack McRae, look, he's probably going to be a forward again. I guess, depending on what happens in the off-season, he's going to be someone we have to look at. What's he average this season? Let me have a look, see what his price is going to be. If he priced at about 91, 92, that almost isn't cheap enough. Yeah, based on what we've seen,
I don't think so. It's been rubbish, and we and a lot of other people talked about in the preseason about the doggies carousel and what's going to happen with Bevo.
It's a nightmare.
And we've seen it again this year. So, like, at what point do you learn and go, like, you just cannot pick a dog unless it's, Bont and then maybe Liver and actually trust a role?
Yeah. I have much more confidence in his teammate, Bailey Smith, than I do Jack McRae.
Priced a lot cheaper too.
He's priced about 10 points cheaper. Yeah. He's also 22 years old. We were too early on Bailey Smith. I'm convinced that we were a year too early. And next year is the year. We're going to pay 20 points cheaper next year than we did at the start of this year. And we were suckers. We
were such suckers. I reckon we're going to be suckers again next year.
Yeah, I'm going to be a sucker again. Little smoky here that I don't know if this is a hot one, but Ben Hobbs.
Hobbsy, you reckon?
What do you reckon about Ben Hobbs as is it his third year? Let me double check.
He's got some scoring potential.
I love the way he goes about scoring in terms of just bobbing up for marks. He tackles hard. He gets the pill.
And when you owned
third year breakout.
You owned him earlier in the season. He had the low time on ground, but when he was on there, he really knew how to find
Racks it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if Essendon disappoint the end of this season, maybe there is a switch up coming more in their midfield. Maybe you don't see Parrish in there quite as much. You don't see, some of those other guys in there. And
Has Parrish
more
signed?
of a run.
Has Parrish signed yet?
I'm not 100% sure.
Probably not after this weekend.
Yeah, well, wait a little bit longer. So yeah, like I think that Ben Hobbs is definitely someone to keep your eye on because I actually think his scoring potential is pretty up there, and priced at 76. I think he's a guy who could easily do 90s at least.
Yeah, not a bad shout. We'll watch him closely.
But that's our way too long segment on the 2024.
We get too excited. This shows how
guys
much
to
I've
watch.
checked out.
But yeah, you got up for that. But that might do it for us. This is going to be our second last show for the season. We're going to do one more show on Friday, so make sure you guys are there live 4:30 on Friday afternoon for our final show of the year. Won't be doing a round review or a season review next week. We'll leave all that stuff. This is kind of it, really.
Yeah,
Was it today?
Leave it open to the imagination.
Leave it open to the imagination. Let you guys celebrate and or drown yourself in beers afterwards, just to forget that season that was if it wasn't a good one for you. But make sure you guys are there for our final show on Friday live to give us your comments, questions, and talk big boys. But until then, guys, we'll catch us later. Bye.